G'day, I'm Patrick from Douglas Fir Design. Welcome to the Router Bits. Just want to have a really quick look today at the Router Raizer. It's a little mechanism that you install onto your router that allows you to get a really good, accurate lifting operation without using a full router lift setup. The advantage of these little guys is you can also then take it out, use it as a handheld router, which is great if you've only got one router rather than one that lives in your table and one that you use other places. And you can still use this like a plunge router. It's a really small mechanism so it doesn't get in the way. I'll just run through a few of the ways that you use it really quickly now. One of the great things about this little mechanism is it can be installed on any router, and the very detailed instruction booklet goes through step by step what you need to do no matter what brand you're using. And the setup is slightly different for each one. So what I'm saying about this little Hitachi here might differ from whatever you have to do on your particular router, but the basic principle will be the same. When you want to use this as a plunge router, you just take it out of your table. You'll take off the base plate, but I don't need to do that right now. And you just screw this mechanism all the way down. It slides perfectly. You can use this little set screw to set a depth. You can then micro adjust using this little adjusting knob there, and you lock off on the router. And it's as simple as that. If I was trying to do that with my other router, which is in the proper big dedicated router lift, I'd have to basically take the whole thing apart, pull it out to use it as a plunge router, whereas this is simple and it's ready to go. But it also gives me full access to this router lift mechanism when it's used in the table. So I'll show you how that works now. So throwing this into a table is where they really come into their own. There are a couple of handheld routers which have the ability to connect a raising rod through the top of a table. I think the Tritons do it. The mechanism works okay, but there's plenty of routers that don't have that option at all, and that's where this Router Raizer comes in really handy. So basically, with a little bit of modification, you install this device, and that means you can then turn the whole thing upside down, place it into your table as long as you've installed a base plate in the correct way. And now you can do all of your adjustments through the top of the table in a really accurate way without having to reach underneath and try and adjust those heights with the knobs or with the micro adjustment knob underneath. And that makes it really simple. So you just set your height on the top of the table and then you just lock it off from underneath like you would normally. You don't have a locking pin like you do in a dedicated router lift, but the locking mechanism on the router itself works perfectly in this case. The Router Raizer comes with this little tiny metal dust cover, and you can use that to cover the hole that the raising rod goes into to prevent anything getting down there. Changing the bits is pretty simple. It will kind of depend on which router you're using. With this Hitachi, it has a little spindle lock down on the body there, and I can just engage that just to be able to stop the spindle spinning, and then use my spanner to tighten off the collet, and it's as simple as that. And your router might have a different spindle lock mechanism that's engaged when it's raised or lowered. This one is just one that you have to push in, so that's how this one operates. This is a really handy system. It's super lightweight, so you're not adding any weight to your router that would annoy you when you're using it handheld or in the table, and that's a real benefit. For instance, that router lift that I use in my dedicated table router is quite heavy. It just means I have a bit more weight to move around when I'm adjusting height, so you don't have that issue at all with this. It's actually really easy to use as a handheld router as well, so you don't feel like it's a compromise between trying to get something that does both things. It actually does the job really well. Some of the router lift systems require you to use a specific plate, and you might then have to machine your table to fit that plate, but with this system you can really install it on any plate, even one that you already have, really simply and easily, and so that just makes it a whole lot more versatile. You don't have to do extra work when you're installing this thing. So you can install it on any router, in any table. It's a lot cheaper than buying a dedicated router lift, and it also means you don't necessarily need to buy a second router if you're going in and out of the table quite a lot. So pretty cost-effective way to get a lot more use out of your router and really make things a bit more efficient in the shop. You can pick up the Router Raizer kit from Timbecon. You can grab it on their website at timbecon.com.au or pop into any of their stores in Perth and Melbourne and pick one up for yourself.